The last few weeks before this pandemic started are a distant memory for so many. Back before masks, quarantine, vaccines, and variants were part of our everyday vocabulary. For me, these are some of the most crystal clear moments in my life. I was the first critical COVID-19 patient in the state of Minnesota and the first person in North America to survive COVID-19 while requiring ECMO life support. I'm also an Ironman triathlete. My story begins before the pandemic in 2015. I was close to 300 pounds working in a cubicle chasing that corporate dream when I decided to start training for triathlons, the short sprint versions, to spend more time with my cousin who was training for his first Ironman triathlon. That all changed when I saw him cross the finish line in September of 2015, and I decided that I needed to do one of these races. Here I was, close to 280 pounds, determined to take on a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and a 26.2-mile marathon run, all in less than 17 hours. I determined that it wasn't where I was today that was important, but where I wanted to go. It'd be a simple matter of don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. I made it to the start line in September of 2017, and that day I hit every mental obstacle and hurdle possible, and I wanted to quit so many times. I just kept thinking to myself, don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. And I crossed that finish line in 16 hours and 54 minutes, just 5 minutes and change before that 17-hour cutoff. And I felt ecstatic, and I never wanted to do anything like that ever again. But fast forward a couple of years, and as these things go, I'd forgotten the pain, but I remembered the euphoria. So I decided to sign up for another race. It was mid-February of 2020, and I was already running a couple of 5Ks a week when I had a 2-day physical at the Mayo Clinic just to make sure that my body was ready for the strenuous activity of training in another race. I was given a completely clean bill of health. Coincidentally, the week prior, on February 11th, the World Health Organization had given name to the new novel virus that was starting to spread around the world, SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19. Now, I had a business trip the following week, and just to be safe, I decided to check the CDC website to make sure there were no cases in Colorado or Texas before I traveled. There were no cases, so February 23rd, 2020, I got on a plane, and I came home with COVID-19. COVID-19 is such a different virus. It affects some people severely and others not at all. Each person that gets the virus is playing a game of Russian roulette they did not sign up for. I ended up with a loaded barrel. As soon as I had a fever, I started isolating from my family and I put on a mask. I endured that fever for 9 days before I was admitted to the hospital. I remember waving goodbye to my 3-year-old daughter in the back seat of the car, not realizing how close that was to being our last meeting. Or saying goodbye to my wife across the glass from my isolation room, telling her that I loved her. Less than 24 hours later, I was on a ventilator and ECMO life support, where they had to oxygenate my blood outside of my body to keep me alive. I was completely unaware of what was happening around me for the next 7 days. I woke up on St. Patrick's Day to a completely different world. I could no longer move my arms or legs without help. I was surrounded by machines that were keeping me alive. Spent a lot of time with those machines. Me, those machines, and my ever-mounting anxiety. The anxiety started that afternoon when I woke up. During physical therapy, my intubation tube blocked, and I felt primal fear and panic of not being able to breathe. It was less than 2 minutes of abject terror that felt like a year. The next day, it happened again when I coughed out my intubation tube. No preparation, no warning, just instantly not being able to breathe. That started a deep anxiety in me about breathing that I still carry with me today. But it also solidified something in my mind that it didn't matter where I was today, but where I wanted to go that was important. And I wanted to get better. It'd be a matter of don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. 4 days later, on March 21st, I had a big event. I remember sitting on the side of the bed. I had my ECMO line in my neck on this side. dialysis line here, still had a ventilator and intubation tube in, feeding tube in my nose, multiple IVs and leads on my body. Surrounded by my care team, I stood for the first time. It was less than 30 seconds, but oh my goodness, was it momentous. I was no longer waiting for things to happen to me. I was able to take an active part in getting better. 3 days later, the ECMO line was gone, but I was still on the ventilator when I took my first steps. Just 3 steps forward and 3 steps back, sat back down on the bed. The entire time just thinking, don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. After 28 days, I was sent home from the hospital. I still had an oxygen and a walker. I was so weak I couldn't even walk up to my bedroom, so I camped out in the living room those first few days. My first walk at home was my second day home, 7 minutes at 1 mile an hour. The entire time just thinking, don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. I was completely exhausted. And it kept going like that every day, once or twice a day, walking inside or outside, until mid-April when I'm being interviewed by Mike Riley, the voice of Ironman. And he asks me if I ever think I'll get to another Ironman start line. And I told him in an offhand way, well, I'm signed up for the race in November. We'll see how it plays out. I had no intention of doing this race, but it sounded good for the interview, right? I mean, I still had my oxygen machine on the floor next to me. Then, 5 days later, I get a package in the mail. It's Mike's book with this message in the cover. Dear Ben, you are an Ironman. Stay strong and keep pushing forward. See you in Arizona. Aloha, Mike Riley. There it was. It was in writing. The gauntlet had been thrown down. I sat with that for a bit and I decided that I would try. But first, I had a big hurdle to overcome. The first part of an Ironman triathlon is a 2.4-mile swim where I've got to put my face in the water and have limited access to air. What happens if I sputter or choke? What happens if I get splashed? What happens if I get a panic attack? Open water swimming is an anxiety event, even for the most seasoned swimmers. All of this was going through my mind that mid-May morning as I put on my wetsuit and waded into 4 feet of water and started swimming. I swam 415 yards that day, stopping every 20 to 30 yards to rest, the entire time just thinking, don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. Less than a month later, I was able to swim a mile without stopping. Now, that summer was not all successes. There were plenty of failures, bad runs, bad workouts, terrible mental health days, even a bike crash and an injured shoulder. I felt even with these setbacks, I'd be able to make it to that start line in November, just about 7 months from getting out of the hospital. Then, 10 days before the race, canceled due to COVID. What am I going to do? After feeling sorry for myself for a few days, I decided there's only one thing to do. That's right, don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. Signed up for the race in Texas in April. Then, 6 weeks before that race, canceled due to COVID. Now I am devastated. These last 4 months, from November of 2020 to March of 2021, have been filled with more than just training. I've moved to a new country with my family, started a new job and a new business in that country. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go through another bout of training, but you know what went through my mind? Don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. Signed up for the race in Tulsa, Oklahoma in May. Many of you are now wondering, why Ironman? Why not a more reasonable goal? You're healthy enough. You could have done the Ironman in November. Why keep going? And there are a few reasons for that. First, I've never made decisions based on the logic of what I should do, but more of what I'm capable of doing. Also, with an Ironman triathlon, you're never trained enough. There's always something more you can do. And I felt that with that as my goal, I would keep training and keep working towards it. And finally, I hate leaving unfinished goals, so that was probably a big aspect of it too. Race isn't canceled. I get to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I start walking towards the water, and the anxiety is coming back. Instead of being with my 1 or 2 training partners, I'm going to be in the water with my 2,500 new closest friends. And the swim goes well, except for a cramp in my calf at mile 2, the fact I swam several hundred yards more than I needed to stay away from everybody. And I finished that course in 1 hour and 27 minutes, 3 minutes faster than before COVID. The best part, now I can breathe whenever I want. It's time to get on the bike. The rain starts coming down and the hills around Tulsa are pretty tough. What almost gets me is a flat tire at mile 35. I just cannot seem to get this tire changed. My frustration is mounting. I am all thumbs trying to get this tire back on the rim. It takes me over 25 minutes, but I get it on. And then at mile 105, stop dead in my tracks by a hill. I just cannot bike up this. But by now you know what I was thinking. Don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. I got off the bike and I walked up that hill. I finished that bike course in just under 8 hours. I'm 9.5 hours into my day. It's the perfect time to start a marathon. For me, a marathon is less about running and more about sheer survival. Sometimes I get out a shambling jog. Mostly it's just walking. The entire time thinking, don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward. The sun's gone down, trails are dark. The word run is nowhere near my vocabulary right now. I turn the corner and I see the lights of the finish line, and I hear Mike Riley call my name. It's 16 hours and 12 minutes, 40 minutes faster than before COVID. It had been 14 months to the day of coming off of ECMO life support. I had sold a house, changed jobs, started a business, and moved to a new country with my family. It was not a single day of effort, but a journey with ups and downs. It was all done with unrelenting forward progress and the help and support of my family. So you know what was going through my mind as I was going from ECMO to Ironman. And I want you to think about what's your journey, what's your goal? And I would offer this little bit of advice. Don't stop, don't quit, keep moving forward.